Like I just kept on playing characters until, of course, like I found Rashid, which I really clicked with, because I didn't have to play neutral. I could just play how I wanted to play, where I just get you in the corner. I can just mix you up, and
Yeah.
and that's when I really started to take off. So I can definitely agree with your theory there, Mike.
I think slow, neutral, heavy play is the thing that takes you the longest to learn. So if you start off playing Ryu, you might spend 10 years learning how to do fundamentals. Like that's, I didn't really feel fundamentally solid until the end of 5, really, playing Lucia and stuff.
And you started with Street Fighter 4 just like I did, right?
Yeah.
So like it took a whole game, right?
Yeah. And so I think as you hone those skills, you're like, yeah, I want to use those skills. I don't want to be godlike and neutral and then play Mika. like
Hello, and welcome to the Absolute Guard Podcast. We're a competitive fighting game community podcast examining history and current events from the lens of the Arizona grassroots scene.
Yes, welcome. This is episode 75. My name is Benny, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host John. And today we are joined by Thrasher and a new guest today, Freezie. How you guys doing today?
Good. How you guys?
Doing good.
I'm also doing pretty good.
Great. So Freezie is one of the younger members of our fighting game scene here in Arizona. How old are you, Freezie, now?
I'm 15.
15, man. That was a long time ago for me.
Same.
Well, anyway, as is customary for somebody that's new to our podcast, we'll learn a little bit about you. So, how did the gamer tag Freezie come about? How did you land upon that?
When I was little, I really enjoyed Mario games. And there was this one enemy that was my favorite enemy. And it was Freezie, and it was like this like little like icicle with a sad face on it. I thought it was really cute, and so
Nice.
I just took it.
Nice. So you said it came from Mario?
Mhm.
I think that's also an item in Smash Brothers too,
Yeah,
right?
it is also an item in Smash Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you throw it at them, and then they just turn into a giant icicle, and they spin everywhere.
Yeah, I also really like that item in Smash.
that I know what you're talking about now. The one with like the squiggly mouth.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm always interested in where people get their names from, and like whether sometimes they think it's stupid or whatever. They're just like, there's nothing really good about this, but it's always nice to find out like kind of where that comes from.
Yeah. And we've had Mike on many times now. How many times have we had you on total, Mike? I think you're in the running to beat Scott.
I think this is the 8th time. Yeah.
God damn.
Oh yeah, let me look at that.
Time. Yeah.
I can pull that up real quick. Let me see.
Yeah, you've been part of many a panel.
Yeah.
And you're at the
7.
forefront of
7.
the tournament results for our community as well.
Yeah. I'm never really doing anything on it used to be Tuesday, now it's Thursday. So
yeah,
on those days I'm not really doing anything. So I'm always a good last minute guest.
Yeah.
Somebody falls out, I swoop right in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
The trade secret is that pretty much all of our guests are last minute nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, it actually kind of works a little bit better that way, because like when the times when we were trying to like plan things out and like put things in the calendar, it was just like it worked to an extent, but then like we had to postpone certain things, or sometimes we'd forget about things that we had going on personally, and it'd be like, oh yeah, we can't do it this time. We're gonna have to reach out to them and let them know. So in a lot of ways, it kind of works a little better.
Agree. Well, part of the reason why we invited both y'all on today is we were looking into Ed last episode, and me and Benny were both like, he seems cool, I guess. He's too hard. And then we kind of stopped there. So we didn't really actually get to talk much about Ed besides he looks cool. But both of you have played Ed and like actually like picked him up formally and tried to make him work in ranked and whatnot. And then since the last taping, I have also taken Ed to master, and so I have a little bit more experience with Ed now too. So now I think our show is actually qualified to talk about this character.
Yeah, me personally, I dropped that after 2 days. Like it was like Monot syndrome for me. I was just like, this character's too complicated for me, so I decided to drop him. My son kind of still wants to play him, and I'm like, are you sure? And like, I don't know, he seems to want to do it. He likes the boxer characters in games. Like he likes Akihiko and what's that other game? Blaze Blue, like
Persona
the
4
tag
Arena.
game. Yeah, Persona. Yeah,
Or
Persona 4
BB
Arena.
Tag. Yeah, it could be BB Tag too.
Yeah. So he likes the boxer characters. So I, mean, I don't know if he's going to continue down that path, um, but we'll see. But in terms of Ed, like, what are your kind of general overall impressions of him right now, Freezie? You seem to be the one that's been playing him the most, I think, in our scene.
I think he's honestly a lot of fun once you get past that like initial hurdle of him being kind of like confusing with his buttons. Because as a lot of people picked on about him, it's like almost swapped in what the buttons do. So his like lows, what normally would be like his low forward, is his crouching medium punch, and like and a lot of his like farther reaching buttons are his kicks, and they're like also cancelable. So like, it's kind of weird, but I think once you get past that, I think he's honestly a lot of fun. Uh, and I think fits my playstyle pretty well.
How would you define your playstyle as far as like how they mesh together?
I feel like I like to play it kind of like mix-ups, or like kind of like aggressive, but also like more mix-up focus. As why like originally I gravitated towards more like Rashid, where like he has a ton of mix-ups in his disposal, and I feel like Ed's very similar with his snatcher, just setting up all these possibilities.
So Freezie likes to be plus. That's what I'm hearing.
I do like to be plus, yes.
Cool. How about you, Mike? What are your initial impressions of Ed here?
My impressions is he doesn't like to be plus very well. You know, at least not off buttons. He pretty much has to build everything around the flicker, right? Like he doesn't. He's got one button that is plus that doesn't hit crouching, which is the default position that most people go to. You know, and when you do whiff it, there is a pretty decent amount of time you have to react, and even if you don't punish him, you've definitely lost your turn. But yeah, I think he's a mid-range monster. Getting around flicker is a nightmare because I've also played against. I was playing one of the Alaska dudes, and he was playing Ed, and his Ed was really strong. And it was just like a nightmare to get around flicker. When it counter hits you, it knocks you down. If you're doing like if you get punish countered, you get like a crumple state. But once you get in on him, he's pretty susceptible to getting jab pressured to death, which is one thing he doesn't have is very good jab pressure, because there's a lot of wonky hitboxes. It could just be people haven't figured out, because it looks like his jab kind of has two different animations when you chain it. So it could be that we're not doing the correct one right now. But that's something that like Punk has complained about as well, is his jab pressure is really bad. I've heard Sajam saying the same thing. But yeah, as far as mid-range zoning, and when you do get those hits, and you're going to eat a lot of damage. Just a fierce into the EX pull is like mad damage. You get 2 DPs and that's it, but it's a third of your life almost. But yeah, he seems like a lot of fun, and yeah, like nothing is really guaranteed. He's very susceptible to drive impacts, but you can also cancel flicker to his backdash, and you can kind of do it on reaction if you're charging it, to where you don't get punish countered with DI. You just kind of get sent further back with a counter hit. So he's got a lot of mind games, which I think is going to be really strong for Freezie.
Yeah, that for context, that Alaska player you're talking about was my friend Crucial.
Yeah. I didn't want to butcher his name and say the wrong one.
Yeah. His name's Crucial. Yeah, he's one of my friends from Alaska. For those of you that don't know, that's where I originally came from. But he played Ken in the previous season before Ed came out. I don't know if he played dabbled with any other characters, but he was the highest placing Alaska player at Evo. He placed like the same as John, as I was 56th or 57th or something like that. Where you guys ended up?
65th. Yeah.
65th. Okay, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I'll
was
take
the highest
56.
placing.
That's fine.
Yeah, he was the highest placing player from Alaska. He's a really good, strong player. So when I heard that he was playing Ed, yeah, I'm not surprised that he's kind of figured things out. Like that's kind of to be expected when you get to players of that caliber. So that's pretty awesome to hear. And yeah, Mike was talking about the oppression of getting away from Flicker. And I played John. I don't know, what did we play? Like 18 games yesterday. And yeah,
like that,
I was getting caught by that damn Flicker so much. Like it's like he would hit a button and then I'd be like jabbing on reaction and then I would just get grabbed, or I'd like try to jump and float, and I'm just like, oh my god, like I can't even get away from this thing at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty rough when he gets a hold of you. But as long as he's not like point blank, he can do a lot of stuff. It's really weird trying to figure out how to pressure with him. He's a lot different than a character like Jury or pretty much anyone else. He kind of wants to stay at a spacing trap range because nothing is really like that real. But if you space it properly, you get massive rewards off of them falling into that little trap.
Yeah, I see a lot of people like basically kind of make reads too, because it's just like, do I think that they're gonna jump after this, and then they'll do the one that reaches up if they're not doing the EX, and then the big difference with the EX's one is you can't cancel out of that, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no dashes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
His throw pressure is ridiculous, though.
Oh yeah.
Like throws are definitely what you do up close with Ed, because shimmy does 1 billion damage, and his throw leads into like a meaty flicker that pulls you right back in for another guess. So, but I'm sure Freezie has figured out even way more stuff than that.
I want to bring up too, because like we're focusing a lot on Snatcher right now, right? And the unique thing about Snatcher is that it creates a +4 situation, which I don't really see that very commonly in these in with other characters. Usually, you see a +2 situation, and +4 it's like right on that range of like being 2+. Like you know how it is. Like if they're like +5 or something, you're like there's no mix up there. You're just gonna block everything that they do, right? So +4, it's okay, but like you're not gonna like it's a weirder amount of block stun compared to like sometimes you want it to be a lower amount so that way your opponent feels comfortable trying to get out of it, and +4 almost like railroads that guessing game, right? Like Freezie, like as Mike alluded to, Freezie's probably got the most developed like post Snatcher game. I want to say post Snatcher. that's gonna roll off the tongue, isn't it? But would you be willing to go through some of the options you have after any of the Snatchers that are +4?
Yeah, of course. So normally to get into the Snatcher in the first place, you usually you'll do a setup, like you get a throw in the corner, you can set it up every time, or like you might hit Fierce into charge to get it, and then afterwards you, in most scenarios, if they're not parrying, they'll be point blank with you, and so there's a couple options you can do. If you think they're going to try like walk back or like try to hit a button, I usually do crouching light punch, which will stop any attempts to do that. Of course there's throw, and then for shimmies, if I catch them doing delayed throw tech a lot, I usually like to neutral jump so I could get a very big damage combo afterwards. But then if like after a while, if they pick that up, I sometimes like to throw in backdash instead, and even if they do an instant throw tech, I'm still able to hit them afterwards and do a bunch of damage.
I was watching Broski's video recently about the throw stuff specifically, where like if they do a reversal mash throw and you neutral jump, they actually have time to recover.
Yep.
Right.
And
so you kind of have to differentiate between whether or not they're delay teching or just straight teching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
And then like if they're mashing a button or something, you say low crouching light punch is the answer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Can you
that's
get
what
a
I
bigger
usually do.
return than just a light punch though?
Yeah. I think you can. I still need to play with it more, but I think you're able to get like a medium punch. Not exactly sure about the frame data, but I think it'll catch them jabbing, and then you'll get a bigger combo afterwards. But I
Okay.
still need to play around with it more.
So more like a counter hit setup then from
Yeah.
you possibly.
Mhm.
Okay.
It would be better if it was like plus on block though, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have any of those buttons.
Yeah, if one thing I was doing is if I was catching people and I knew they were mashing, I would just do crouch medium kick, which is like not a normal, but I would drive rush. So like, but the thing about crouch medium kick is it forces standing, so you can do your heavy kick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you can do two into like a low forward. It's big damage. But
Yeah.
it's 3 bars on a guess. It's not the best thing, but if they show you that they're going to be mashing a lot of the time or mashing tech, or that's another way to get them to kind of hold still as well.
Yeah, I don't know anything about mashing. I don't do that.
What's your
course.
option if you think they're going to DP? Either
Just it's kind of hard. I mean, if I think they're going to DP, I usually just walk back. Yeah, and if like on certain characters you can neutral jump their DPs, but other than that, like you don't really have many other options other than just walk back if you think they're going to DP.
and so that's where like the reversal throw mind game actually comes into play too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the reason why I'm putting so much focus on the snatcher here is that like when I took Ed to ranked and then when I just played ranked on my own with different characters, and I ran into an Ed, it seems like that's the immediate thing that everyone's gravitating to right now. And when a new character comes out, everyone's trying to like they win with knowledge checks a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And so that seems to be like the number one knowledge check that every player every player, no matter whether you're playing Ed or you're playing a different character, we have to learn how to deal with that. So even if the folks listening right now don't actually play Ed and this sounds boring, like this is how you counter Ed, if anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like when we were playing yesterday. Like that was like for me like a big lab session. Like I've only played like the people in the hub or the occasional ranked player that I played. So
Mhm.
like when we were playing, like I was using that time to kind of like test things because like it's kind of like what you were saying yesterday when we played. You were like, I'm just using his best button, which was like his stand fierce, right? And I was trying
Yeah.
to find ways around it, and I was eating a ton of damage, like trading or just losing outright. And I was just like, man, this button's really freaking good. And same thing with like the EX Snatcher. Like I didn't know that I could parry that. I didn't know, so I was attempting to do that like super late in the set. Once I kind of was like, oh, I didn't know I just have to hold that. I should, if I think you're gonna do that, this is probably a better option, right? And I think I got like
Yeah.
one perfect parry at the end. But at that point, like we were 15 games in by the time I was like, oh, I could do that. Like I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a weird thing too. Is like how do you perfect parry on in a +4 situation? The timing is probably kind of whack.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, something that I found that works really well against Snatcher though. I've seen some people do, but it's mostly for the EX since it's a very like specific timing. Is
Yeah.
try to perfect parry it because if you perfect
Yeah.
parry it, it just does nothing. It just leaves you there. And so I just wasted 2 bars, and
Yeah.
now and I'm not entirely sure, but you might be able to get punished afterwards, depending
Yeah,
on how close it
that's
is.
exactly what I was referring to. Is because like I didn't know that I could even attempt that. I was just
Mhm.
kind of like, because initially like John would be like stand fierce, and then I'd hit jab, and then I would just get grabbed, and I was just like, well, this sucks. So I stopped using, I stopped pushing a button, and then I would just get grabbed, and I was like, well, how do I stop that from happening? And that's when I started, trying parries and stuff like that, and that's when I, kind of figured it out at that point.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's
uh,
definitely a tough thing to deal with.
a lot of people are doing like heavy punch into the EX right now because it blows up everything except DI because you can't.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I found out later too. I was just like, oh, I could just DI through.
Yeah. DI is the big one. If somebody's doing that, you should definitely be looking for like the flash after the heavy punch. I'm not sure if they could do like an EX fireball to kind of bait it or not. I haven't tested it that far yet. But for sure, if they go for the flicker, DI is the option.
I remember when I was playing some sets online and ranked, I ran into some people who just kept on consistently DIing it. And especially when I had level 2, something I like to do was just do fierce into the EX flicker jabs. And sometimes I just catch them mashing their DI. And then I go into a full combo afterwards.
Okay, yeah. See, then that's where the mind games begin, right? Gotta make a choice.
Can you cancel? Sorry, can you cancel the EX Snatcher into SA2?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
yeah, that's one of the. Or no. I'm thinking of the punches. Never mind.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm also not sure if you're able to cancel the fully charged flickers into level 3. I've been trying, but it's also just a really tight timing, so it's kind of hard to react to.
Sure. I want to revisit your point earlier, Freezie, about the parrying it and changing, because when you parry it, it changes the pull-in animation, so he's still +4, but he's not in your face, right? And it seems like that's like designed into the character because he can cancel into a forward dash, right? Mm-hmm. So if he sees the parry, he can just dash in and throw your parry recovery essentially and get a free punish counter.
Mm-hmm.
On which one?
Like whenever you try to charge your snatcher.
Yeah. Just the EX is the only thing I was talking about because you were the OB version of it.
Yeah, just the EX one.
Yeah, that one you cannot cancel into a forward dash.
Nope.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's also, I think, Mike, earlier you brought up that he can be used as a meaty as well in the corner, right? So like he'll throw and then do a charged one. And that's the part where it's like, okay, well, if he's throwing me and I'm waking up, that's a pretty rote timing, so I can just go for the perfect parry. And that's when he just dashes in on your ass, throws you again, and you're in the exact same situation.
I like to do that with the charged fierce also, because you can time it to where right when you would normally come forward, you cancel to the dash. And some people are trying to react to that. Because if they do the punch, as far as I know, I haven't tested like doing level 3 off of it. I don't think you can, but yeah, if they do the punch, DI also blows that up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people try and perfect parry it, so you just dash forward and grab them, and it's a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah, it is.
I did not even know you could dash cancel the charged fierce. That's the one where he like charges back and he goes psycho knuckle and flies across the screen, right?
But you can only dash forward.
I did it to you when we played.
I don't remember that. That was like day 1, dude.
I didn't know you can cancel that either. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's that move is a guess for a lot of ranges.
Yeah.
You can also, a lot of people will jump it, but you could just release it and then have time to DP. Like you don't even have to charge it the full way.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
It's hilarious how much he has just like bait and switch mechanics that he can do.
Yeah. I still think the charge punch is definitely, I think, a gimmick right now, though. I think after a time, people are going to find easy counters for it.
I mean, it was a gimmick in 5. It's a gimmick now, but
it's a fun gimmick.
But now he could dash out of it. So.
Yeah. I think it does I remember in 5 it formed a unique purpose in that he could use it to escape the corner. Like it would still be like a gimmick, and that your opponent has to let that happen. But it did have a practical sense in that you could alter your screen positioning. So I imagine in the long run, when people aren't like getting hit by that thing anymore, like it'll be okay, I think.
Yeah.
I want to clarify too, because I realize I've been saying dash. It has to be the command dash, his 2-button input dash.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's funny you
Okay.
mentioned that, John. It's like one of those. It's almost like the whole DI discussion before, right? Like it's super prevalent at the lower levels, and then like you get to this level where people are like not using it as much, and then like at the high level, all of a sudden like it's become like super viable. So like I could see that happening too with the charge punch. Like you might see it from like the diamond lower platinum players. Then like you kind of have those low masters where like this isn't good for anything, and then you're gonna fight somebody that's like 1900, and they're just gonna like throw it out of nowhere, and you're gonna be like, "What the?"
Another thing about that charge punch is if you charge it, so there's like it's not like in 5 he basically would charge it, and then when he charged it to a certain point, it would come across the screen.
Yeah,
He can there's like multiple levels to it in 6, so he can charge and release, and it'll just whiff like a normal heavy punch, right? Then if he charges a bit more, he'll go across the screen, but I believe he's minus. But if you charge it all the way, I believe it's plus, but for sure it can go through a fireball, like it can absorb a fireball as it moves forward. But there's a flash, so like you'll charge it, and maybe like for like maybe we'll say a second.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a move that goes across the screen, and if it hits you, it gets a full combo. But I think if you block it, they lose their turn. But if they charge it all the way, there will be like a flash and like a ching, like a noise.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it'll go through a fireball, and I believe it's plus if you block it. But it's also a very obvious time. And whenever I've tried to do that and they haven't thrown the fireball, I just get perfect parried. So
yeah,
I see.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that you can overcharge it, like, or not in a positive way, but like you might hold it down too long and then you don't get the plus frames? Is it kind of like a just frame thing? Or?
No.
No.
I think it's just once you charge it. But like I said, I could be completely off base, but I do know it goes through fireballs if you hear that noise.
Yeah, it goes through
I didn't know
the
that.
one.
That's super
Yeah,
cool.
it goes through the one. It says one hit. Is what I'm looking at.
Sorry. From personal experience, I've had that happen once, and every other time, if like let's say we're full screen, like a full distance apart, if fireball's mid screen, I'm getting hit by it every time. I've only had it happen where like we're full screen and like they just threw their fireball, and that's when the full charge went off. So it might be, but like I've tried it multiple times. It's really weird.
So the instance I was playing Carlos, and he started throwing fireballs as like a way to stuff it, and that's when it works. So if they start doing that, it works pretty consistently for that. But then that's when the perfect parry comes in. So you release it a little bit earlier, and you still get the dash. It's a mind game for sure.
Okay.
But no, I don't recommend consistently charging.
Yeah.
But if you get the read that somebody's trying to because if you release it at the normal time and not the full charge, you'll just smash right into the fireball. But so if they choose that as an option to stuff it, then you can charge it the rest of the way and get a pretty decent punish. But yeah, it's just crazy the amount of layers that his whole game has, and all these little tricks that you can. He's going to be a nightmare for the people who hate gimmicks,
Yeah.
And he's going to be a nightmare for me too. But one cool thing that he can do is like there's this meta, right, where everybody kind of reversals low forward when they think your pressure's done. Low forward drive rush, and he can kind of just do a block string into the dash back, like so. His buttons are not plus, but he can kind of get out of that game, which really is what has kind of made me want to play him full time. Is I hate that meta of dealing with the drive rush, and then I could see the next layer of that being you could steal extra turns because they're trying to read that you're going to backdash.
You're talking like the situation where you block 3 jabs and then. Or like you do 3 jabs on your opponent and they block it, and then when you like try to keep your pressure going, they just throw out low forward reversal immediately, DRC, and then either hit you or take plus frames, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so you you can just backdash cancel that and then whiff punish the low forward even because that DRC is not coming out if it whiffs. Interesting.
I don't know that in the times that I've done it, that reversal low forward does not get punished, but you don't deal with it. Like you don't all of a sudden get a throw mix up to be in the corner or not. So you're just away, and they're going to have to make a hard read to try and bait that. And that I'm all for that. If you got to think one more layer to instead of just brain dead mashing low forward drive rush, I'm all for it.
Okay. The other side of it is, well, actually, let me take a step back. So we talked a lot about like 2 different gimmicks so far, but then he's got several other moves that are worthy of discussion, like his DP, right? In 5, his DP was a very like definitive portion of the character just due to its speed and its level of invincibility and its ease of use. And in 6, it's a traditional DP motion, but it's got some unique properties. And I was curious, like, if either anybody here like really experimented with the DP, like, what do you guys think of it?
I think it's really bad, personally. It's just because of how slow it is. I don't know exactly how slow it is, but even the light version, sometimes I'll do it and they just empty jump and they're able to block and they get full punish. It feels really rough to use. Sometimes like there's certain distances where like it'll just whiff. Like if they try to do like a jump and like they could do an extended button like a Ryu heavy kick or something, and it'll just whiff if they empty jump. And medium and heavy, I really struggle to even like try to get that hit because sometimes like the couple times I have used it or try to use it, it just dashed through them. Like I feel like it's just it's weird and I don't think it's good. I will say the DPs, they're really good combo tools though, specifically the light version. And they do a ton of damage. That's the one I think saving grace of it. Is that they're really good for combos.
Yeah, those couple days that I played him, that's the one thing I noticed too, because I think you mentioned that early on too, was like don't use anything besides this light as an anti-air, and like I was trying to do the same thing. Like I try to use the medium or heavy, and just like the way it moved, like I ended up like not hitting anything, or they like jump over me, and like the light was the only one that was consistent. I was just looking it up. It looks like the light starts in 10, then it's 14, 16, and then the OD is 13. And I think that's the thing it might just be I mean, I haven't looked at like the hit boxes and the hurt boxes and stuff like that, but just like the way it moves is a lot different. Because like John said in 5, like it was pretty much just like straight up, right? And it was really fast utility with just pressing the 2 kicks. Like that was the input. And or the 2 punches, sorry. And or 3 punches, I guess. But in this one, like compared to like everybody else's DPs, that they go vertically, right? Like his kind of seems to have a very limited kind of vertical aspect to it. You see Ryu's going straight in the air, Luke's going straight in the air, Juri's going on like a diagonal, but she's still, they're covering that kind of vertical aspect, and he doesn't seem to have that as much.
I agree with that. It actually kind of reminds me of Chun's DP in a way, because you can empty jump Chun's DP pretty easily too. I still think Ed's is worse, but it's nothing's a bigger like kick to the nuts than like, hey, I saw them jump and I'm ready to anti-air them, and then they empty jump and I lose for anti-airing them, and then that just makes you doubt like anti-airing in general for the entire rest of the set, and they can jump at you for free, aka Cammy's dive kick.
I have to look back at that footage we had, or that I recorded from us playing yesterday, because like there was one where I kind of floated directly over you, and I don't know if that's something that's like legit tech that I could use. And then there was another one where I guess I did a safe jump in a way, because you mentioned it and you were like, oh, safe jump, and I was like, I didn't even intentionally mean to do that, so I don't know if I was doing something that's been out there or if it's something like Ed specific, because it was it seems slower. So I don't know. I have to go look at that stuff.
I think that's the main point, is that because it's so slow that even if it's not a true safe jump against Ed, it is, because he doesn't have a reversal that's going to hit early enough.
Yeah.
So, how about on defense, the ODDP? Because everybody, in 5, I know that we all came up with option selects to like beat these like late starting DPs, right? And so when we saw that this is a slow DP as well in this game, we're like, okay, the defense is automatically bad. But from your guys' experience, have people like started like, the thing here is you whiff a jab essentially, and then you pressure them as a meaty, but if he DPs, then you have time to block still. And I was curious if like, have you guys run into that situation where someone has actually exploited that weakness yet?
Yeah.
Mike, do you want to start?
Yeah, I've run into that. You did it, even though you don't remember the set that we played.
It's because I was playing jury. I wasn't thinking. I don't need to.
Touche. All right, but it offensively, like it's very bad for reversal. You kind of got to call out a throw or do it at wacky times. I think it's what makes it extra bad is that it's also a DP input. So it's still difficult to thread through like, certain situations because you have to do a DP input. You can't do it from blocking like you could, in Street Fighter 5. But then you also have the downside of it being 13 frames. And if somebody just continuously pressures you a jab, like Chun players do, used to, like you're just going to block that DP all day. Even sometimes on accident, like as long as you're blocking while you're jabbing, it's just bad for defense. But offensively, one interaction I've seen happen multiple times is when I have tried to just do, be a dickhead and pull them in and then just DP whatever they're about to do. It beats V reversal or the drive reversal. So like,
oh really?
Yeah. So like you do the DP, the drive reversal whiffs, and then you smack them in the mouth. And I've ended rounds that way a lot of times with people doing drive reversals. So I mean, is it the most practical use? But it's a cool interaction when it happens.
Yeah,
it's a unique one too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that because of like the kind of extended animation that it has? Do you think it's because of that? Because he does like the uppercut and then he does like the downward punch, right?
I think it's a mixture of the two because like level 1 works. I've done that with jury where I've done like when somebody's too predictable and I'm ready for it, you can level 1 and it'll beat drive reversals. But with Ed, there's that situation. I had it happen multiple times while playing him where I would just try and DP somebody who's always teching just to make a point. And then this time they drive reversal and it just looks ridiculous. But I think it's less on Ed's DP and more on, I think you run out of invincibility pretty much right after the drive reversal should have hit you. Whereas in 5, there was invincibility for a time after the V reversal happened. So like even though it whiffed, sometimes whatever you did after didn't work. I know because I labbed a lot of hours of dealing with Sims drive reversal or V reversal. God, it's so difficult to switch back and forth.
Yep. That's actually a good conversation to have too. Is that we've made a couple of different comparisons between Street Fighter 5 Ed and Street Fighter 6 Ed on the show here, and the plain as day observation is that Ed is a very different character now compared to Street Fighter 5. And I was curious about your guys' opinions on that, and as far as like, should Ed in Street Fighter 6 have just been a completely different character altogether, or do you like is this a slap in the face to Ed players from 5, or is this a natural evolution of the character, like kind of like how they like 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 how Lily is an evolution of T-Hawk, but DJ is also an evolution of DJ. Like which route do you think they should have taken there?
Well, I'll give my input real quick since I used to play Ed in 5, and
Yeah.
in all honesty, like I liked like what they did with him in terms of making him more of a boxer, right, and not having like the low forward and the kick uppers and stuff like that. Like I like the design implementation in terms of that, and in terms of like who like his style and him being more of a boxer. I don't necessarily agree with making him more complex. Like that to me was probably the one thing that kind of really threw me off because from him being like one of the simple input characters like him in Falcon in 5, and then now he's arguably one of the tougher characters to learn in this game. But that kind of seems to be the kind of the story with the DLC characters in general, right? From Rashid to Aki, like they've got mechanics and things that are more difficult than the base roster for sure. So I mean, I think we're going to kind of see the same thing with Akuma too. But I mean, to me, Akuma's always been more of kind of a technical character anyway than your traditional Shoto.
So are you saying like the identity of the character, like being easy to play with the easy inputs, was part of the identity of the character for Ed, and like
Yeah.
by making him more complicated, do you feel like they're betraying the identity of the character in a way?
Yeah, somewhat a little bit because it's almost like what they did with Honda. Because like Honda in 4 was hands pressure, safe on block, that kind of stuff, right? And then with 5 they kind of gravitated away from that, and it was used in combos, that kind of thing. Same thing with 6, right? Like he's not hands is there like a combo extender. It's not his pressure tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same way with Ed. Like Ed, if you've seen Ending Walker and you've seen any other Ed player in 5, it was 1 2 3 1 2 3. Like that was if people were pissed off about it. Honestly, I think towards the end.
Yeah.
But and then in this game, like uh, you don't you don't see that same kind of pressure. So I feel like they've basically kind of changed him in the same way that then Honda was changed from 4 to 5 and 6.
And then Mike, as a fellow Street Fighter 5 aficionado, what would you say about the differences between those characters?
I forgot that Freezie didn't play. But, all right. Yeah, it was. I like the change, but I didn't really play it. So like I messed with him very slightly when he came out, but I think they kept enough of him, of his moves, to still call him Ed. But I was curious how they were going to do easy inputs while still having modern controls as a thing in the game. And I think they did a decent job of bringing Ed over, which this is, you and I had talked about it before, but I was thinking he would have normal inputs because it didn't make sense to have easy inputs with
modern
controls.
Yeah.
But I thought he was super difficult too, right out the gate, and he's definitely technical. But I think the bigger issue is getting over how weird his buttons are.
Yeah.
Because it's not intuitive at all. And I'm not saying that it should be. I'm just saying I think that is, like, for sure, Benny, you could play him. He's not too difficult for you. He's weird, and because you could do hands in 4, and I can't do that. But like, it's just a matter of wrapping your mind around his weird buttons and when to use them. That was the hardest part for me, because it doesn't feel like you're doing a low forward when you do his crouch strong, but that's essentially his low forward, right? Stuff like that. It made him very weird, and it's almost like trying to play a character on pad, your character on pad. Like all the moves, but you can't get your fingers to do the right inputs. And so my brain is seeing a low forward, but my brain is also doing a crouch strong. And I think that's where I had the big issue with him. And overcoming that, all of a sudden he was a lot easier. I was doing Twitter combos and stuff. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, even still, there's still a learning curve for me. Like, I haven't played him as much as like Freezie has. So
yeah, no, that's a really good analogy in terms of like, using pad or even just a different control scheme altogether, right? Or go in the hitbox if you're not used to that. That's kind of a good way to put it. I did have kind of one question for all three of you in terms of like, Ed is the newest character, and kind of curious, like when it comes to you guys learning a new character and labbing them, like what are you initially like looking for? Like, are you looking for like good normals, like a B&B that does good damage, like setups, something along those lines? Like Freezie, like what are you looking for? Like when you were like, all right, I'm gonna try Ed. Like, what are you looking for?
It's a lot harder when it's like a new character. Like no one knows anything about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like first off, I always like to do combo trials for characters just to get a feel for like how their buttons link and like common like bread and butters, because the combo trials are really good, honestly. And then afterwards, I like to just like I'm not even like necessarily looking for anything. I just really like to like mess around with them in training mode for a while and like get a feel for their buttons and like find out like what their frame data and stuff like that is, and like and like just see like what works, what doesn't, and like see if I can like find anything else from that. And so I wouldn't say I really look for anything. I'm more so just like I like to like try them out and see what comes from it.
Gotcha. What about you, John? Well, like, what are you looking for? Like, I mean, I know, like what you were talking about yesterday was like, look for their best button or play with their best button, like when you were playing me. But like, when you have a new character in the lab, like, what are you looking for? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, this is a topic I think we talked about in like episode 40 or something at this point. Like it was a long time ago. As far as like when we try to start new characters, and my answer is largely unchanged. In that, I look for strong normals and I look for B&Bs, and specifically for me, I look for knockdowns and I look at where do I get Oki, because that's usually, or like what, and a lot of characters in this game like have a template where like there's a special move that's for combos, for you can choose for damage, you can choose for Oki but less damage, or another one where like it might not even knock down at all but leave you in a plus frame situation. But the issue with Ed, and like I stand by my initial impressions of him where I was like, this character's too hard for me, is that my strategy that was unchanged, it did not work for this character because of the idea of I'm trying to find good buttons first. What the hell are these buttons? I didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't really actually figure out anything. So it actually, the strategy that you're asking me about here actually worked against me for this character, and I think that's part of the reason why I think Freezie's perspective is so valuable here, because he does not have the same legacy baggage. Legacy knowledge is the positive way to put it, but legacy baggage is is what happened with me with Ed here, where it was like I have to unlearn things before I can learn things. So I find Freezie's point particularly poignant in that he can go into training mode and like freestyle with the character for a little bit to figure it out. I did that same thing and I did not know what the hell was going on. And so the only other outlet for me to actually figure out how to play this character then is to watch other people, which is usually, that comes naturally anyway when I'm learning a new character, but that's very, very difficult in week one when there's nobody to watch, really. You just have to kind of see how other people are starting it. So I waited a week, and then I saw how Freezie was playing, and then I just copied what Freezie was doing. And I was like, oh, that EX stature is pretty good, isn't it? I'm gonna just do that. And then I play the character for half an hour at TGZ, and I start running a win streak because they get hit by the Fierce and the OD Snatcher. But unfortunately, I'm not evolved past that at this point.
Yeah, I saw a tweet or something the other day where it was like, what was it? something like I fear the 14, 15-year-old player that has all the time in the world to learn things. And it was in relation to Street Fighter. And it
Yeah,
was
it's
just like,
literally.
that's literally Freezie there. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean that's a good way. That's how a lot of people are looking at things when it comes to new characters, right? They're looking at Twitter, they're looking at Discords, and trying to find the tech, and then X copy that and add that to their game. Like, I mean, it's typically the easiest way to kind of gain knowledge. But what about you, Mike? What are you looking for? Like when you started Ed, like what were you looking for initially?
So, obviously the normals and the combo trials, like Freezie said, are
Yeah,
invaluable with Ed. It's like all of that stuff is stuff you're actually going to be doing. Even the V trigger or the V trigger. Ugh, we need to stop talking about 5. Even the SA2 stuff is like actually, is it the most optimal? No, but it's like great for just getting some damage.
It gives you an idea. Yeah, because I see that. Yeah, I see that even now. Like I see people do the EX punches into the level 2, then they'll do the heavy DP, and then they'll do the heavy snatcher.
Yeah, and that it's solid damage. It's a good option. And then there's the Twitter corner carry one where you like dash forward, drive rush forward, heavy kick, light fireball, charge fears. Like those are the only 2 that I could think of doing. I haven't super dove into it to find a better one, but yeah, I tend to start off with like offense because that's usually what's pretty unique. Like defensively, you're either gonna block, have a DP, parry. There's not a whole lot to go into. And like neutral, if you've played Street Fighter for a certain, for like any amount of time, you've seen buttons that are similar. Like we've all been playing against Ken Stand Fierce, and Ryu Stand Fierce. So when I saw his, like, okay, that's good. That's going to be good. His low forward has pretty decent range. That's going to be good in neutral. So I really stick to learning the offense first, and figuring out these are the things I know that are good. Getting a throw mix up. So I start with like the buttons. Found out quickly that none of them were plus, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to get blown up by, people reversaling a button. Still haven't really figured out a way around that one just yet. Outside of doing
no jab pressure, man.
Yeah. But I'm used to that. Jury doesn't have the best jab pressure either. But that's when I figured out that you could dash out of range with the, with the backdash. Canceling the button into the backdash is a good way to kind of reset and go back to that range where Ed is really strong. But when I think focusing on the offense is really where I go, and I kind of reverse engineer it from there. It's like, okay, now I'm doing this on offense. Can I do frame traps from here? Am I spacing myself out to do other spacing traps from here? And then neutral is just kind of like reactions and whatever button looks good, and you'll feel that out playing matches. But it's no fun to play a match when you don't know anything. So I might as well know the offense.
I think there's a really like strong point here in that, in keeping with the theme of like, what am I trying to say here? So I have this general idea that like the characters, the more fighting games that we learn how to play over the years, the more institutional knowledge we build, and the more we think that things need to be done a certain way, like low forwards being cancelable, or low forwards hitting low at all, right? And then Ed comes in the way, or if like you go to anime or something and it's like, tough shit, there's no low forwards at the game at all. But the big thing is like, I know from my perspective as somebody who started with Street Fighter 4, I did not play a traditional character like that fit that archetype in 4. I played whack ass like mix up characters like Viper, or Vortex characters like Ibuki or Yun. I did dive kicks for a little bit too, but I did everything but like play a Shoto, like fundamental low forward DRC, or low forward fireball, or low forward DRC, low forward super, depending on the game.
Yeah.
And then I found that as time has gone on and I've accrued that experience, I've gravitated more towards Shotos and I've gravitated more towards that still footsie style. Like I'll still play an aggressive version of that, and that's what Chun-Li is, but I do end up playing that like that basic style. And I've noticed that for a lot of the veterans in our scene, and like I don't want to speak for you, Mike, but like I feel you play that way now too, even if you play Jury, like she's still a fundamentals based character. She just happens to have, she has a fireball, it's just weird, and the DP is weird, but still has a fireball and DP. I've noticed that the older players tend to gravitate more towards those base fundamental characters, and the newer players, it seems like anytime a new player joins, they play the whack character, and then the next version of the game comes out and they start cooling down too. And I was curious if, like, do you guys feel like that pattern has any kind of merit? Can you think of anybody off the top of your head locally that has kind of evolved that way?
I can think of why people do that.
Hit me.
I think slow, neutral, heavy play is the thing that takes you the longest to learn. So if you start off playing Ryu, you might spend 10 years learning how to do fundamentals. Like that's, I didn't really feel fundamentally solid till the end of 5, really, playing Lucia and stuff.
And you started it with Street Fighter 4 just like I did, right?
Yeah.
So like it took a whole game, right?
Yeah. And so I think as you hone those skills, you're like, yeah, I want to use those skills. I don't want to be godlike and neutral and then play Mika. So I think with newer players, they're like, man, I'm getting blown up in neutral, but then they find a character that allows them to win around that, and it's more appealing. Not saying that that's like everybody, but I think a lot of people are that way. People I have played in Arizona and in Tucson have tried to play Shotos right out the gate, and they just did get blown up. But then they might switch to a character like, say, an Alex or somebody like that, and now they're having more fun because nobody likes to just show up to casuals every week and just eat shit. You want cool moments, and I feel like those characters give you more cool moments. But as you progress, the cool moments come from solid play and fundamentals and just outplaying the person and knowing that there's nothing you could do. It's not a gimmick. I just space better than you. That's my opinion on why people play, because I did it. It was fun to play Dudley and like
just high-low people to death, right? And put them in the corner. Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting. I like that. I like that theory. I like that. I mean, that I can kind of agree with that too in a way. What about you, Freezie? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I mean, I felt like I didn't really click with the game. Playing like I just kept on playing characters until, of course, like I found Rashid, which I really clicked with, because I didn't have to play neutral. I could just play how I wanted to play, where I just get you in the corner. I can just mix you up, and so that's why I really started to take off. So I can definitely agree with your theory there, Mike.
Yeah, speaking of neutral and just trying to get in, like you have an infamous clip against Sejam when you used to play Kim.
Me?
No,
that's a good example.
Oh my god. That's like, that clip.
I haven't seen that one. I'm not.
It's crazy.
He plays like a platinum Kim player would, and just tries to go in constantly, go, and then just runs face first into things. Yeah.
Round start slide like 3 times. He would just literally just sit back and wait for me to like DI, and like I would like I wake up super like every time and stuff like that. That was crazy.
I assume that was very early on in the game's life.
I think it was like 2 months in.
Like last week,
so.
Man. Wait, it's not 2 months ago. No. It was
not ago. Like 2 months in.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because like Freezie's definitely gotten a lot better in a short amount of time.
Yeah,
right.
So I was like, that doesn't sound like the person I've been playing against recently. So, but that's not a knock to anybody who plays those characters. To be clear, I'm just giving it the respect it deserves. Of like, neutral is not easy. Like, you can't come in playing your first fighting game and having it be Street Fighter, and expect to be able to contend with Scott, who's got 30 years of neutral experience, right out the gate is. But you might be able to cheese him out with like some Blanca stuff, or like, or a grappler, or like a Manon getting level 5 command grabs can beat 30 years of neutral in 3 grabs. Yeah. So like, but
man, that gives like a whole new definition to neutral skipping, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's like people figuring out how to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
And then as you gain the skills, you want to use them, so you transition to better and better, or more and more neutral heavy characters.
Yeah.
Even if we look at like the chat of our viewers here that have left messages in the audience, and again, any messages you put on the stream will show up in the VOD here. Like Technopathetic, aka Japanese Steve, aka It's Like Orange. I learned to play Street Fighter 4 alongside him, and he was playing Cody and he was playing like random ass characters, but like now he plays Luke, and it's just it's an example of like, I think as you get older you just slow down. And so like for Freezie, like again, you like Ed a lot, right? You say that he gels with your style, and like he's got that mix up, right? You will get old and you will slow down.
Dang, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like Mike said, it's like, it's almost like it's more about like the simplicity, right? It's like, I mean, that used to be, I mean, I don't know if that really applies to me now, but I remember one thing that Zane would say would be like, that's a Benny character, right? Like he'd be playing advanced characters like Seth or somebody like that.
Yeah.
And then he would be like, I just need to play like a Benny character and play a character that was like simple, and so I could learn, didn't have to spend so much time learning the game. And like, I don't know, maybe I've just progressed backwards or just gone the opposite direction from that nowadays.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, my theory falls apart with you, Benny, in particular. You're the one counterpoint to this, where you went from playing like I eat paint to like now you're playing one of the most complicated characters.
now I paint portraits.
Yeah. You went from eating the paint to using it to paint the Mona Lisa.
Paint no go in mouth, go on wall.
Go on ceiling. Like the Michelangelo thing, not like
the Sistine Chapel.
Honda players can finger paint the Mona Lisa.
It's all
no, dude. They took away hands. It's not professional anymore. That's a fascinating thing. Even like if you look at like Big Mac Combo is another good example where like he started with Sagat, so he had kind of a base fundamental style at the beginning anyway, but that motherfucker just chucked fireballs and hit buttons over and over again, like at 5, right? But now he's playing Ryu and he's playing this calm, methodical style, and then he throws out the donkey kick. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's just it's a theory. Again, Benny kind of blows a hole in that theory a little bit, because you went from easier to harder. But maybe that's the U-turn that we'll all make, is now we're playing solid fundamental style characters, and then we're gonna get bored and we're gonna go back to like really hardcore mix-up characters again.
Yeah. So I had one question specifically for Freezie, and then I had another thing regarding Ed for the both of you, Mike. So I was curious, Freezie, like with you being so young, like what got you into playing Street Fighter of all things? Because like I've played NES Tetris in the past few years, and I played that competitively, and that scene has kind of skewed young, for whatever reason, with Tetris. And like I'm interested in like what got you into Street Fighter? Like, was it somebody else playing it, or was it you seeing trailers or something for it? Like, what got you into Street Fighter?
So yeah, why aren't you a Fortnite munchkin?
Or were you in Fortnite and we're like, hey, where did this guy come from?
Oh, wait, that actually sounds sick. Honestly, it kind of felt like a pipeline in a way, because I started off playing Smash Brothers, as a lot of people did, and I really enjoyed Smash Brothers. And then like eventually I saved my money to get a computer, and I really enjoyed playing Melee, because I was like around like Slippy, So I was able to play
Ah,
online.
okay.
Yeah.
And then you wanted to look for a real fighting game. No, I'm just kidding.
No, dang, Benny, dang. What was I saying? And I was starting to get kind of bored of it, and so I was like looking because I only played plot fighters at the time. I found this one game that seemed pretty interesting. It was like super fast paced. Uh, called Rushdown Revolt. Really fun game, but that game has like a ton of people from like a ton of different audiences. Like one of one of the top players, like one of the best players ever, came from League of Legends, and another one came from like Yu-Gi-Oh, and like a bunch of like a ton of different games. And then there was like a lot of anime fighters, a couple of people who played like Street Fighter. There was like a ton of different backgrounds who all came to play the game. Um, and so of course, like I started becoming friends with a lot of them. Still talk to them today. And one of them recommended me to try out a 2D fighter, Blaze Blue, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. Um, and I just had a ton of fun with the game. I had this one friend who I played with all the time, um, and eventually she was starting to get really excited for Street Fighter. I was like, okay, that seems very interesting. I'll try it out. Um, remember I got it on like the Steam Keys website for like $30, and I just especially with modern, I just really enjoyed the game. If there honestly, if there was no modern, I don't think I'd be playing Street Fighter right now.
Oh, okay. So you started with modern and then you
Hmm.
gravitated to playing
Yeah.
classic now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So thanks to modern controls, we have Freezie to thank, or Freezie as part of our community.
Honestly, I know a lot of people kind of like trash on modern. I think it's one of the best things ever added to like fighting games. Like it's amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
lowers the barrier of entry, right?
mhm.
Because like a lot of people when they want to play fighting games initially, like what do they want to do? They want to do cool combos and special moves, right?
Yeah.
And classic controls are not very intuitive to even people that play games regularly. You tell them do a quarter circle and they're like, "What?" And then press punch at the end. Huh? And like,
Mhm.
they have troubles with that. Let alone trying to teach somebody how to do like charge supers back in the day. Like, there's a lot of people that just wouldn't even play those characters because that wasn't something that they were used to doing or even can kind of comprehend. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I'm
Um.
curious about one thing, Freezy. What pulled
Mhm.
you away from modern? We don't really talk about that often. Like, why
Uh.
did you switch to classic?
So uh, after I started playing Street Fighter, I started just trying out different games, um, and playing with some other friends. And one of my friends started getting really into was Skullgirls. And
Oh,
of
okay.
course, there's no modern controls. It's um, honestly with modern controls, it's less about having the one input motions. Those were nice, but a big part of it for me was just the six buttons were really daunting because uh, I didn't
Hmm.
really like not having all my fingers or all of the buttons covered. Because like in Blaze Blue, how I played, I just had pointer, middle, ring, and pinky fingers on the buttons, and so my hands never left those buttons. So just even thinking about that, like I just like I couldn't even
Uh,
imagine it. So I decided to give it a shot on Skullgirls. Eventually I started getting the hang of it. I was like, huh, why don't I try this in Street Fighter? And so I changed my character. I went to Chem, and after trying out for a bit, I was like, yeah, this feels good. I think I'm confident now. And then I haven't touched modern since.
nice.
Okay. Would you still consider modern viable in the current competitive climate?
Yeah. I think I wouldn't say for all characters.
Yeah.
I'd say classic control is definitely the better version for the majority of characters, but like you saw with like solving, he got into Capcom Cup with modern Luke. Like there's
Mm,
certain characters that like I think can really thrive on modern, and I think it's still competitively valuable. I mean, we saw
yeah.
like Haitani, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Debo.
Chun Li.
Yep.
Modern Shun.
Yeah. Modern Chun and like what's his name?
Yeah.
I think Modern Lily's the other prevalent one that I see the most. Yeah, Modern
Mhm.
League, Modern Lily is probably the two that I see the most.
Yeah. I also see modern Brios
Yeah.
sometimes unranked. Yeah.
Shuto is trying to make modern Marissa work for a little while. I've seen modern Cammy
Mm.
around too. So
Yeah.
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 Yeah, well, that's awesome. Like, I'm glad that one that kind of brought you into the scene, and then to see the transition over to classic. I mean, yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with sticking with modern. Like, I see it all the time in the hub, people trashing on people that are playing modern. I mean, I don't know if they're losing to them or not, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like if you're losing, you're losing. It doesn't matter what they're using,
Mhm. Yeah. I definitely think it's an amazing thing they added.
Yeah.
And I'll still respect modern player even if I lose to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, the only thing I just gotta remember that they're playing modern in terms of
Oh,
like the
definitely.
supers and the reactions and stuff like that. That's the one thing that kind of really throws me off because I'll be like,
Mhm.
normal people or classic controller users, like you'll see them buffering. You don't see that with modern. They just kind of stand there, then all of a sudden it's just like, oh shit, a super came out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the one thing that I gotta worry about. We're kind of taking it back to the Ed discussion. So for Mike and Freezie, what do you guys think are currently I guess like the three best matchups and then the three worst matchups for Ed from what you've played so
Mm.
far? And we'll
I
start with
think
Mike.
I think I've only played a handful of matchups, but uh, I'm gonna pass it to Freezy, and I'm gonna think about some characters because I might have to do this more off of theory than
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because
Uh.
you got Ed to what, like 1700 right now in MR?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so
Uh.
based on what you've played so far.
So I think it's three worst matchups in no order. Like this isn't like theory or anything. It's just personal finding these characters.
Hmm.
I've lost the most to I think Cammy's, Chun's, not specifically John. uh,
No
and
comment.
then and those are our main two. I think I lose too often.
Is there anything about those two particular characters that you find troublesome, like with what your game plan is or what you're trying to do to them?
Um, I don't know what it is about specifically those two characters that like people online just like I don't know what it is with the people I fought online. Like they're really consistent at catching me out trying to use Snatcher or not Snatcher, just the normal flicker and neutral, and just um
Ah,
what's it called? Using their anti-fireball tools to just punish me hard. And so
gotcha.
I feel like eventually it's gonna I, as like I start playing matchups more and like I started because I only play like one way with Ed right now. Like
Yeah,
I don't play differently based on matchups usually, and so like
gotcha.
it's I think eventually it's gonna like kind of shift, but specifically those two I really struggle with. And I can't really think of a third, so
Okay,
I'd probably say JP. I just think JP is really rough because
okay,
I do think his fireball is surprisingly good against JP, but there's just some situations I fought against JP that's just like been really tough.
gotcha. Okay, then what about like your best matchups or the favorable matchups right now?
Um, I don't I can't really think of it. Oh, actually, wait. For the worst matchups, actually, now I think about another character that I lost to a lot. Was Manon,
Oh,
surprisingly,
Oh,
because
hmm.
okay.
um, for there's been a couple Manons I fought that's like because I forgot exactly what it was, but I think her like spin move,
Yeah,
um,
that's what I
it
was
goes
thinking
through
of.
fireballs. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so like I just fought um, this one Manon that just kept on doing it, and it just and they just got like 5 medals super fast, and like I said, eventually it'll probably change, but like and then like I fought against Ish, and Ish was doing really well against me. Like I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with like I feel like I can't like it's kind of hard to contest their jump ins, I guess. Like, because of course, like
yeah, Manon's got a
I
weird
can,
one, huh?
yeah, it's weird. Like I can, like if I predict it, yeah, I can DP, but especially like if they cross up, it's really weird.
Oh, okay.
I also don't know how to. I still don't know how to do what's it called?
Oh, the crosscut.
Crosscut. Yeah, I still don't know how to do that. I need to practice that, but yeah, Manon's just absolutely destroying me online.
Oh, okay. Then what about the favorable or the best matchups you think so far? Who are you
I've
steamrolling the most?
so my steamrolling. I think he does well against Marisa.
Shout outs to
Although,
Maynard.
yeah, I'll say that. Shouts to Maynard and Honorable. Because I've also fought like a couple Marisas online, and I've just been able to steamroll them. Because what you can do is you can throw in the corner, and if you do Snatcher, they're countered. It doesn't reach, so you're able to just walk up throw. It's really nasty. And then and of course no invincible reversal is really rough.
Yeah.
And then I've also had a surprising amount of success against Kimberly. Like I'm not sure if it's a good matchup for him, but like when I played Chun, so I said in the venting channel once, I fight this person named Mr. W a lot, and they like I haven't won a set with my Chun against them in a while. Felt like they just steamrolled me, but I play Ed, and like that's like the first time I've won a set against them in a while. And I played like a couple other Kimberlys that just I've also been able to steamroll. So
well, I feel like they kind of have similar game plans because, like,
yeah,
Kimberly doesn't really have like a way to get out of stuff too without no reversal. So it's just
reversals
like,
are really rough. Yeah.
yeah, like once Kim gets going, then that's when she's problematic. And I feel that's kind of the same way with Ed. Like if Ed's got the pressure going, then that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah. And then for the third one, kind of a low ball, but I think Jamie.
Just punch him
like,
down. It's because the character sucks.
I mean, I just feel like it's really, especially with his fast fireball. I think it's really easy for Ed just to let him get no drinks in neutral and have to approach him, and and like Jamie kind of struggles sometimes at that, and so like especially with his long buttons, Ed can just kind of wall him off, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, I fought like one or two Jamies online, so it's not much of a defining statement, but that's at least in my experience playing against him.
Yeah, I mean that's the similar kind of game plan that I have against Jamie and Lily. Is just like, oh, you want a drink? Here, I'm just gonna punch you. You know what I mean? Like, until they kind of figure that out and like, oh, I can't do this. Like, I gotta get a knockdown first. That's kind of like the initial game plan and like the knowledge check. Nice. What about you, Mike? Have you been able long enough time to think about, or at least have a theory about like what you think would be good or bad?
Slow down when you get older, man. That time.
I think a lot of the matches that I've played have been against Shotos, and I feel like he does just fine against them. But yeah, I can totally see Cammy because my saving grace that I thought Ed was going to have was the easy DP to hit that damn dive kick. Now that that's not the case, I could totally see that being difficult. Any character who could really rush him down, I think it has to be a combination of the ability to skip neutral as well as stay in. And if you can do that, so I think Jury is probably going to be pretty rough for Ed. Follow that EX fireball in, and then once you're in once, it could be, the end of the round. That was my experience playing against Crucial. It was tough in neutral a little bit. He outranges her, but once I got in, it was a nightmare for Ed. So yeah, I would say Cammy, Jury, probably Chun as well with all the safe jumps. And you don't even have to do real ones against Ed.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it's just, I could see those being terrible.
Yeah.
Probably Luke as well, because he knocks you down with the fireball, and then you're in. Anyone who can get in on him pretty easy is what I would think is a terrible matchup for Ed. Okay. And conversely, I think his best ones would be ones where he can just zone you, because I think his mid-range zoning is pretty strong. Kimberly's, that one I would feel could still be up in the air because she can skip neutral and rush you down. That guy just might have like some sort of mental block against Ed, or
I mean,
yeah. But if I think about the characters, and we could play that match because I still play Kimberly a little bit, but I could see her totally getting by Ed's stuff. Pretty much anyone he can zone out and force to play flicker games as long as possible.
Yeah.
Are going to be a tough match for them versus Ed.
I've got a kind of a natural evolution to this question. And it's probably the one that I think everybody like tuned into the episode for. Is the character good or is the character bad? And I know that's a loaded question with 3 weeks in, but from your guys' impressions, like what's like from what you know now, and maybe we can look at this later as a time capsule, and maybe Ed ends up being like fantastic or terrible in the long run. But like, how do you all feel about him overall? Freezie, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure.
3 weeks in? It's been like a week and a half.
Yeah, no, it's been a week.
Is it really?
Yeah, it came on the
27th.
Yeah, week and a half.
Holy shit! Sorry, a lot's been going on this past week. It feels like it's been 3 weeks.
It's like 3 weeks.
God damn!
Yeah, I was like,
oh man,
I didn't even catch it. My weeks have been going the same way. I guess it's already been 3 weeks.
When you get old, you get slow.
Sorry, where was it going? I feel like he has a lot of tools. I feel like he kind of feels like a really weird Shoto, in a way where like he has a fireball, he has the DP, and like he has like kind of like some standard Shoto buttons, but then he just has like all this like kind of wacky, goofy parts added to him, and some of it's good. Like I think his fireball is really good. I feel like he might. I haven't had much experience, but I feel like he can do good against Guile, I think, because he can match the Guile fireball pace, because of his 2-hit fireball, kind of like DJ, and then also his EX being really good because it just cancels out EX, and then you also throw an EX. So, but then there's also other parts like his DP being terrible, being very DI susceptible in a lot of areas. So it's still really early to tell. I think he's gonna gravitate towards like kind of like mid-tier. I think it's really I still don't think I can tell within a week. Like he just has a lot of parts about him that are really good, and then he also has a lot of parts of him that are really bad. He feels kind of polarizing in that way. Like he doesn't have that jab pressure, but then he has that snatcher, which is really good. So I don't know. Like I said, I think it's going to gravitate towards mid tier, maybe high tier, but it's going to be like low high tier. Like I'd say like maybe somewhere around like where Maurice is right now, like around like 10.
Strong but with weaknesses.
Yeah.
Some really bad matchups then. Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? 1 week in, one week, but actually 3 mentally weekend.
So the way I'm thinking about it is his defense sucks, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Defense is the hardest thing to do in this game. It sucks for everybody. It's not going to matter that it sucks for Ed, because I play a character that has a good DP. Still sucks to be on defense.
Mm.
But here's the thing that I think he's going to be top 5, because I think his mid-range is really good. There's so much guessing involved that I think and I've said it to Jon a million times, it's better to be random than it is to be good. So not only can you apply the skills if you are good playing neutral, but you also have a million ways to make people guess. I think he's going to be top 5.
Wow. Okay.
Because people are only going to get better at keeping you out with Ed and keeping you away from that weakness. But how much better are we going to get at dealing with Ed stuff?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I think we have pretty much the whole gamut of opinions represented here, because I think this character is ass. And it could very well just be like because I don't understand the character, like as I've said over and over again on this show, but I feel like the guessing game is too volatile to be consistent with, and over time, while yes, like it still is an objective +4, I think that there's just so many ways around that, and it's such a rote pattern compared to the ambiguity of like having good walk speed or something like that, that over time we'll all figure out how to throw rock paper scissors really well and then exploit his weaknesses on defense even more than the average character. And that's kind of what people said about JP too at the beginning of season 1, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, he's good right now, but he'll be shitty once we all figure it out, and that never happened, right? So I could be wrong there too, but like I still fundamentally cannot understand how this character wins in this engine outside of the +4, which again is too rote for me to. There's not enough like creative freedom there, I think, and there's too many hard counters to it. So with all that said, like I want to like revisit this episode someday, and one of us is going to be really wrong and one of us is going to be really right, and it's going to be a fun conversation.
And I'm either going to be really right or
you're going to be hella mid, Freezie. That's what the kids say, right? They say mid.
Yeah, I got the safest guess.
I'm going to throw this at you for that. You're worried about his +4 and that not being very strong or necessarily the end all be all. But think of how strong low forward drive rush is and being +2. And
I think +2 is better than +4.
I don't. It's a direct throw mix up. I think that's the key. The key is whether or not they have to guess throw. Because throw is going to make you decide to do something or not. And then if you get thrown in the corner, you're going to end up in the same exact situation pretty much automatically. So it's worse than a throw loop. It's almost going to be safe 90% of the time, barring a character who's got like a crazy level 3 like Cammy or something that, or something that's projectile invincible frame 1 if that beats it. But I think he does what's already good for 2 bars instead of 3, which is bring you in and put you in the throw mix-up.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Well, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I will say I do think over time though, I feel like people are going to get more consistent at dealing with that snatcher. So it won't, like right now, it's almost always like a guaranteed, yeah, I'm landing that. But as time goes on and like people get more consistent at perfect pairing that EX and actually like reacting to it with DI and stuff like that, I think it's going to become less and less consistent. Maybe not to the point of a gimmick, but more so like it's going to be like a risk to throw out compared to right now where like it's pretty safe.
One thing that I used with that move that I couldn't, and I was bad at it right now because I don't know the spacing for it, but is doing it not off of a button, but doing it as just like out of nowhere neutral skip. I'm pulling you in, which you can do right around his best range, which is the stand fierce range. So I was bad at doing it because I don't know how to move forward with the character yet very well. But I think once people figure out that range, because fierce into charging the normal version is already a mix-up because you DI it. Like I said, people are only going to get better at reacting to DI and doing the backdash and not eating a full punish. You're not even eating drive damage because it's not a punish counter. It's just a counter hit. In the situations, I don't know if I'm doing something that's causing a weird interaction, but if you can make guessing wrong not a punish counter, that's amazing. Especially if the alternative is I've hit you and you're eating a ton of damage, or you're eating a +4 situation.
Makes sense. I wanted to try to like zoom out a little bit, but also take Benny's question and kind of turn it on its head. Because we've talked about how do we learn a character before on the show, right? And I want to know, and this might be beneficial to folks that don't intend to play Ed, but still have to live in the game that play the game that he lives in. Is how do you learn how to fight a new DLC character? Like being on the other, when we put the shoe on the other foot, like what are you looking for when you are trying to figure out how to fight a brand new character, particularly like Ed, where it's like those normals are unintuitive to use, but they're also unintuitive to see. And like Benny, I think you probably have like the most recent experience with that when we ran our 20 games yesterday, right? Where you have no intention of playing Ed, but you had to figure some stuff out on the fly against my rudimentary Ed, my stand fierce in the EX Snatcher Ed. And so I am curious about like what goes through your thought process when you're trying to learn how to fight a new character that is not standard in the game by any means.
Well, I guess like so when I'm on offense, it's more about kind of seeing how they react to things, right? That's just like kind of the general play, right? Like if I throw a fireball, like what are they looking to do? Are they countering my fireball? Do they have a move to kind of circumvent that, right? Whether it's like a sway, or like Minot's spin move, or Cammy's spin knuckle, that kind of thing. Like what are their ways kind of around that? And then also kind of like how they're dealing with like my neutral buttons, right? Like with my just the simple like stand medium kick, or the stand medium punch, those kind of things. And then when I'm on the defensive, it's more like I was saying, like I was using it as a basically like a lab session, right? Like I was like, after you do this, like if I do this, what's happening, right? And a lot of times, like for the most time, I was guessing wrong, right? Like I was, like I said, like you'd hit the stand fierce, I'd whiff a jab, and I'd get grabbed, and I'm just like, okay, so I can't do that if he's doing this, right? So then it's more of like a kind of going through like what my other defensive options are, whether that's parry, like can I DI through this, those kind of things, or I don't think I threw out a reversal, but sometimes it'll be like, can I reversal here? Like what happens at these situations? And then of course there's always like the kind of like the throw mix-ups, and I kind of already knew just from just general playing other people and stuff, like that was the thing, like you get forced into that throw mix-up with the snatcher, and it's just like, so what are your options from here? And I think for you, like you did a lot of neutral jumps, and like I'd be teching, get hit by that, and then all of a sudden like I had to change like what I was doing from there, and I was like, do I do nothing, or do I delay tech, or do I do nothing and then try to anti-air you, try to teleport away, do something along those lines? So that's kind of my approach. Is there's definitely a lot of trial and error, and then because I don't really look at like a ton of like frame data or anything like that. I'm just like, oh, that's safe, but this is unsafe. Like I'll probably look at that kind of stuff afterwards and just be like, oh, they were getting away with this. But like I don't know. I don't know if that's just kind of like the kind of old school mentality that I have, where it's just like I'd rather just kind of trial by fire kind of thing and try to figure things out on the fly. And then like, oh, he was getting away with this. Like I shouldn't let them do that.
I get you. Mike, same question to you. Like, what were you looking for when you were running sets against
Crucial?
Crucial. For some reason, I thought his name was Citrus. I don't know why I thought that. I was gonna butcher it too.
So we have that new guy, Citrus Destroyer.
Oh, yeah, that's why. That's why. Yeah. That's probably why. That's in my head.
When I was playing him, I feel like it was a little bit different with Jury because, like I said, her general game plan works really well. against Ed, so I wasn't having to figure out a whole bunch of new things. Dealing with Flicker was definitely annoying. But she kind of has some crutches in that match because she can just jump and then make that a mix up. Yeah. so I like those are the reasons why I feel like it's kind of bad for her. So if I had to play Ed with like a Ryu or a more basic character than Jury who didn't have these weird tools I could abuse, I'd be probably in a worse spot feeling about it. But while I was playing Jury, my whole goal was to get in because it was like I knew, from playing Ed in 5 that the jab thing was going to work, meaty jabs. So getting around Flicker, buffering normals to deal with his, Flicker normals, like the kick buttons that he has that look like they have no hurt box, but quickly you find out by mashing strong that they do have a pretty significant hurt box. Like I said, I'm a bad example because my character's game plan just worked really well, so I didn't really have to change much.
I mean, that's still a valid way to approach the matchup, though, right? Is like I'm sensing a recurring theme here, but I do kind of want to run that also by Freezie too. Like, how are you? How like have you had to fight against an Ed before with a different character at all, or how'd you learn how to fight the mirror even?
So I think I'm kind of unique in the way that I haven't really had to experience it the same way you guys have, because I've given every single DLC, at least so far, a pretty solid shot. Rashid, of course, I played a ton. Aki, I played for 2 weeks, and I really understood her. And then, of course, Ed right now, I'm doing pretty good with him. So I feel like when I'm fighting these DLC characters, a lot of like what I do against them, I kind of rely on my like previous knowledge of them, because of course like I play these characters, so I know what they do, I know what they want to do, I know like what they're trying to look for, etc., etc. But like I don't know, it's Ed having to play the Ditto. It's kind of weird, but after playing enough against Ed and like starting to also play more Ed, I feel like I'm starting to understand it more and more, and like what they want to do and like how they're going to achieve that and what to do to stop them, I guess. And
a good example is like at TGZ, right? When you and I played the Ed Mirror for the first time, and I had just picked up the character, and I was like, I'm gonna do my Stand Fierce into OD Snatcher thing, and then you DI'd it like immediately. Yeah. How did you know to DI it?
Just from playing online. Like sometimes people just do random things, and I don't know if like it's meditated, like if they actually mean to do it or like anything like that, and then it works. I'm like, huh, maybe I should try that. And then so like I'll fight other Eds, and if I see them keep on doing that, I'll just sometimes throw out a DI, and sometimes it works. And so usually it's from playing the character that I start to understand how to counter them, rather than like actually playing against the character.
Yeah, that's something that comes from like I guess fighting games in general, but I remember that from Street Fighter a lot of times when people were like, I think Mr. SNK Nico specifically said things about that in terms of to learn a character, like you should play them because then you learn their weaknesses the more you play them, right? You learn what's not good about them when you're put in their shoes, literally. And you did say Ditto. I was gonna point you out on that because that's a Smash thing. In Street Fighter, we call those mirrors.
Yeah, I know. Just like how it's not grabs, it's throws.
I do want to point out like a recurring theme with Mike and Benny's answers, and to a certain degree Freezie's answer here, in that it seems like the general game plan is think about it in terms of the character that you're playing, and then try to execute your flowchart on that character. That's the offense side that Benny was talking about, or that's the dive kick that Mike was talking about, right? And then from there, after you see like what they can and cannot deal with, you kind of know what to repeat over and over in the matchup. In my case, it was like, oh, I'll just Hazanshu all the flicker stuff, right? And from there, it turns into like a reactive style of gameplay, where it's like, okay, now I need to know what they do on defense, whether what they do when my flowchart falls apart and they're attacking me instead. And it turns into like, Benny, in your case, it's to to roll the dice and figure out every possible option and then kind of take note of that over time, right? And just try things, essentially. Try different things, try guessing different things. And then from Freezie's perspective, it's like, I'm going to learn how the character works first, and then from there I can learn how to defend against it based on whatever people do back to me.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's like main avenues, right? Like playing the character, learning them, learning the weaknesses, like you were saying, Nico said. That is a big one. Another good one is pray to God that there's somebody really good who plays that character that you could get sets with. Like, I had no idea how to fight Aki. Shout outs to Rika for showing me a bunch of stuff after blowing me up in tournament. That is one good way of doing it. Also, social media. Like, watch YouTubers. Everybody's figuring stuff out. There's so much information out there. Don't hesitate to soak up knowledge, because that's where I heard about the DI. I heard it from people talking about it and what.
That's what I was expecting Freezie to say. Yeah, I thought he got it from a YouTube video.
But also, I think it's super important that when you play a character, you kind of you learn what moves work where, how hitboxes interact with other characters, and over that time, you understand your character enough to where you immediately, when you see a move, you get ideas. Oh, stand heavy punch might hit that, or crouch strong might blow that up, or I can use a Zanshu because I think that might be a fireball. That comes from just experience as a player, right? So it's purple shit, it's probably a projectile. So just like, don't forget that you also have to know your character to the best of your ability as well. That's true. That is a huge point for figuring out how to fight other characters.
One thing, you mentioned the flicker hurt boxes, and like after you said that, I pulled up the Ultimate Frame data site to look at those. I'm like, man, I didn't know those hurt boxes were like that. There's a lot. There's a lot going on there, and like I think now it's the same thing like you said, like knowing your character. Like now I'm thinking like Dawson's back medium kick's probably going to be good against those because of the way it kind of pulls them back. And it's what do you call it, John? Like disjointed. It's like a disjointed hurt box. Yeah. So it's like I think that's gonna be the kind of move that I got to deal with, because like John was hitting me with that off of I'm trying to like hit jabs and my crouch fierce, and that shit was just blowing me up, and I was like that medium flicker's stupid. I was just like, but now looking at it after you mentioned that, like I think I got different answers or things I'll try against that.
Yeah, literally on this show, Benny has proven Mike's point, and that just use the resources that are in front of you, right? That's super cool.
You know your character, so you have ideas already. Like with Jerry, I was like, crouch medium punch beats a lot of stuff. Let me try it. Oh, look, it works.
I think there's a lot of stuff in this game, and maybe it's also because I've been getting older and I just started to see a little bit more nuance in the world, and it's not as black and white. In that, for Street Fighter 6 at least, the answer, if you have to pick between two things, the answer is always both. And I think that in this case, it's like the answer is to make sure that you know your character's offense well enough, but then you also should be willing to play the character. It's both. You got to do both. And just like when we talk about ranked online, right? Like custom room matches are good, ranked matches are good. You probably got to do both. But like I think the tough thing about characters specifically is that not all of us can play the characters that are coming out. Not all of us are going to gel with those characters, and so there has to be some kind of substitute for that. Because I genuinely think that Ed might be too hard for some people to pick up, for them to learn the matchup really. So all they can really do is go do what Mike said and find somebody that's really good to play that character over and over again.
And we're all not 15 and can play.
Yeah.
Speaking, speaking of 15, I brought up that tweet earlier about the the 15-year-old that has all the time, and like for before we kind of close things out, I just wanted to say like for me being an older an older guy, older in the scene, like it's refreshing to me to see young people play this game. Like my son's picked it up. He's 14. Like and just it's nice to see those kind of players come out because like a lot of times you get a lot of these legacy Street Fighter players, right, that have been playing since ST and stuff, and they play a certain style, and they get you get used to seeing like kind of the the way that they play. Like John calls it like boomer neutral, like using heavy buttons a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you see like it's almost like you brought up, Mike, in terms of like the kind of style that the newer players have. It's more mix up heavy, it's more rush down, and it's just like, well, I can't beat you at this level, but I can figure out all these Oki setups and these knockdown things that pretty much work on anybody once they get going. So you see it all the time in Twitter where people are like, well, I don't have all the time to play games, and I got a wife and kids and blah blah blah. And like I think for me, like I'm a shining example of nah, fuck that. Like, make good use of your time, and you can be a decent player too. Because I've had people compliment me all the time in terms of like, how are you like decently good at these games and you got a family? And I'm just like, do you play all the time? Like, no, I don't. Like, I'm relying on whatever legacy knowledge I have plus basic fundamentals and just like knowing, how to spend my time wisely and what works for me. And that, you don't need to be playing these games all the time. You don't need to be 15 years old and not have a job or anything like that to be good at these games. Like, good players are found from any age.
Yeah.
Agree. And good players change over time as well, and they find different ways of being good. I'm not like that's the joke, is that we get old and we get slow, but like genuinely, I think that we just learn how to flex different muscles over time, and some of us may go back to being mix-up players like Benny here, and now he paints instead of eating it.
Instead of eating the paint.
Yeah.
So did you have any shout outs or anything there, Freezie, before we kind of close things out here?
Honestly, well, first shouts to Maynard especially for being able and willing to take me home from TGC. I really do appreciate it. So does my mom. And then also just the whole Spiral Series community as a whole. This is an amazing community. It's been a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people, so I really appreciate it.
Cheers. How about you, Mike? Any shout outs on the way out here?
I know one.
You guys for having us on. Yeah, everyone. The ability to play comes a lot from having a wife that's really cool with me, spending multiple hours ignoring her and playing video games. So yeah, shout outs to my wife Jessica, the Arizona scene, and the next generation. Because at one point I was that next generation, and it's weird to be an OG Street Fighter 4 player, which I know just made Scott and Nico and everybody else cringe. But yeah, shout outs to you guys like Freezie, keeping us honest, forcing us to continue to get better, and not just be in a stagnant scene, because we need them. So don't forget that when you're at casuals and they hit you with some shenanigans.
Cool. Well, this has been the Absolute Guard Podcast, episode 75 with Jon, Benny, Thrasher, and Freezie. You can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Spiral Series, YouTube at youtube.com/Spiral Series, and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify under Absolute Guard. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.